following program is brought to you by Time Air, Canada's largest regional airline. We're a partner in the Canadian Airlines International Network, with services across Canada and around the world. Time Air has been providing top flight service for almost 25 years, and it shows. Time Air, the heart of the western skies, providing complete passenger, cargo, and charter flight services.
Corporate 1, Calgary number 134, wind 210 at 5, will come to 29 or 901. Okay, check 2991. Alpha runway 28, turn left now. Alpha runway 28. The code 2576, right, Charlie 221, code 2576.
Many of the airports in Canada are celebrating either 50th or 60th anniversaries over the last 5-10 years. Calgary International Airport was celebrating its 50th on June 10th, and exactly the same day, Pearson International Airport in Toronto were doing exactly the same thing. We're really proud of the type of celebrations we put together in Calgary. We think we've got an airport that's something special, and we've tried to celebrate it in a very special way too.
Bill is president of the Western Warbirds, and as one of the pilots of your association, can you tell us something about it, Bill?
Yeah, sure can, Jim. The organization was started by 3 members in southern Alberta who purchased Harvards back many, many years ago and called themselves the Harvard Association. That was in 1972. In 1974, they changed the name to Western Warbirds, and our organization has grown ever since. Presently, we have 98 members and 104 aircraft, all ex-military aircraft. most of them flying, some of them in various stages of restoration, and a few aircraft probably never will fly again. But basically that's the organization as it stands today. We're all private members of this organization. We're not sponsored by anyone. We're private owners, I should say. We are not a museum foundation. We're a group of private owners of ex-military aircraft. We have a few associate members who, for one reason or another, qualify on our membership, but basically the qualifications are you must be an owner or a part owner of an ex-military aircraft. Not necessarily Canadian aircraft either, as long as it's a military aircraft from anywhere in the world that can be licensed or flying in Canada. The basic type of aircraft is single-engine land. Most of them were trainers. Some of them we have that were World War II fighters, and since that era. We have a few twin-engine bombers. They keep in mind that they're privately owned, so there is an economic limit to the investment and the cost of restoring and maintaining these aircraft. They vary in value when they're back in flying condition from, I would say the minimum aircraft value is in the range of $20,000. The most prestigious or expensive aircraft in our organization would be in the neighborhood of $500,000. The organization is not a professional aerobatic organization. We're a group of owners that want to take the aircraft to the air shows to fly them and display them on the ground. When we fly them, most of the people just want to hear them and see them. We're not out to prove how close formation pilots fly or how aerobatic pilots fly. We're out to fly these gorgeous airplanes for what they are. So we do a limited amount of close formation flying after training, which we have to do to have the blessing of the Ministry of Transport. Anytime you're in close formation flying, obviously the risk factor goes up. And we have an approved flight manual, training manual from the Ministry of Transport, which we adhere to. And we annually do some training, and we do not fly with anyone that we have not trained with.
You've noticed the arrival of the Air Canada L-10A, a very historical aircraft, and we very much appreciate the support that we've received from Air Canada in making the aircraft available to us today. Arriving on the aircraft will be our official platform party for today. We're very honored indeed to have with us Mr. Ross Belcher, Member of Parliament, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Transport Minister, along with Bonnie Lang, the MLA for Calgary Bow, the Deputy Mayor of the City of Calgary, Mr. John Schmall, and of course, the General Manager of Calgary International Airport, Mr. Richard Paquette.
Indeed, that was the best flight I've ever had, 5,000 feet above our city, that little aircraft, and I was told that it would take 19 hours to fly across Canada. 19 hours. But it's indeed the pleasure for me to be here this morning, not only as Deputy Mayor, but as the Alderman for this particular ward, where this airport has been located since 1939.
Okay, the Lockheed 10A, of course, was one of the first aircraft that TransCanada Airlines had, and they flew it across Canada from coast to coast. When it came through Calgary, of course, it was on the branch line, as the main line when they first started ran through Lethbridge. It carried 8 to 10 passengers plus a cabin attendant, which they called stewardesses at that time, and a crew of 2. It had to carry oxygen because it's an unpressurized aircraft, and when it was going from across the rocks, because of the type of engines, piston engines, they couldn't get enough altitude to get out of the weather. So some of the trips across the rocks was just a little on the rough side, but if anybody had any sort of nausea, you had a cabin attendant and of course oxygen masks. I used to travel on this aircraft between Calgary and Edmonton during the war when I was on leave, and also between Calgary and Lethbridge. As you can see from the registration on this aircraft, all the registrations all began with TC, and there was TCA, TCB, TCD, and down the alphabet. They were retired, of course, when the larger aircraft, such as the DC-3, came into work. Fortunately, and I have to compliment TransCanada Airlines, Air Canada, they saved one, and they've done a fantastic job of keeping this aircraft operational. I think it's a real boon to the aircraft industry that this aircraft is still around, because, as you know, when the aircraft becomes redundant, so many of them end up in the melting pot.
The history of this airport relates very closely to the history of TransCanada Airlines transcontinental service. They were starting up in 1939 and commencing a service right across Canada. Originally, their service was focused in Lethbridge because the mountains to the west of Lethbridge were a little less formidable than the mountains west of Calgary. So what was happening is there was a feeder service being put together, and Calgary and Edmonton was linked to Lethbridge. It was like a hub and spoke, with Lethbridge being the hub. And TransCanada Airlines commenced their service here in 1939, and it was in response to that the city of Calgary acquired the land, 640 acres, and developed a single runway and a single building. It was an all-purpose building that did everything. It was a hangar, it was the administration building, it was a terminal building, it was a tower, it was truly everything. So that was the building that was first constructed as a terminal building, and it continued on to be used as that purpose from 1939 to 1948. After the end of the war, and there was significant development in the airport during the wartime period, the terminal building function was transferred over to the west side of the airport, and to take advantage of some of the facilities that were built by the United States Air Force during the war. They had built a huge apron, and they had built a number of different buildings, and some of these buildings were dragged into place, and some old H huts were used as a terminal building from 1948, and it continued on even after the city took back the administration of the airport in 1949. I guess it became apparent to the city that there might be something in this aviation business, and these H huts might not be enough to satisfy all the needs into the future. So what they did is began planning for a new terminal building. The terminal building was completed in 1956, and it's currently in place over on the southwest side of the airport. It doesn't look like a great deal right now, but when it was completed, it was one of the finest terminal buildings in Canada. It was actually expanded 6 times before the full consequences of the jet age overtook it, and it became apparent that the city just simply couldn't meet its needs through this building in this location. And in 1967, the city of Calgary sold the airport to the federal government for a total of $2 million and a promise to build a new terminal building. And I think the city fathers at that time and the planners for Transport Canada showed a great deal of foresight in picking an airport site or a site for the terminal building that was completely removed from all the other development on the airport. So you could have a free hand of doing things right and without the constraints of trying to build around existing terminal buildings. So what we have, in 1977, the federal government completed this terminal building, which I think to this day continues on as being the finest building in the country. And it was built with the idea that it was expandable. And so in the future, we're going to be able to carry on with one terminal building and be able to handle many, many more passengers than we do currently.
So we're talking to Rich Lancaster, who's a CF-18 fighter jet. How long have you been doing this?
I've been flying the F-18 since the January of '86. I've been in the military since 1979.
Okay, and how did the whole process work?
Well, I finished university and I was working at General Motors, decided that wasn't my cup of tea, so I went down to the recruiting office and told them I wanted to be a pilot. I went through the process, all the paperwork, selections, off to officers training in Chilliwack, through Portage-la Prairie, primary pilot training, jet training in Moose Jaw for a year, and then off to fly fighters in Cold Lake for a year. And I went over to Europe on the 104 for 3 years, and then back in the 18 instructing.
Well, tell us a little bit about the plane.
Well, the airplane, we've had it since 1983. We've got 130 of them in the inventory. It's state-of-the-art, most modern aircraft produced today. It's made of composite. It's got the computers, fly-by-wire system, and it's a very versatile airplane.
Okay, what sort of, give us some of the specs on performance.
Well, it'll do twice the speed of sound. We use it from sea level right up to 50,000 feet. It's very maneuverable. We can get into a dogfight and maneuver us down to 100 miles an hour with the airplane.
What sort of arsenal is this on board?
Well, it depends on what Air Force you're flying with. With our Air Force, we carry heat-seeking missiles, radar missiles, and a series of conventional bombs, but the Americans will use smart weapons and a little more sophisticated equipment on the aircraft, which costs a little bit more money.
Super, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we're talking to Keith Schultes, who's a Marine pilot.
Hoorah!
So, what sort of aircraft is it you fly that we're standing in front of?
This is an A4 Mike. Its primary mission is air to ground and marking targets and that sort of thing.
Okay, and then the bombers would come in?
Exactly, yeah, that's the primary mission, and it does others, deep air strikes and that sort of thing. It's got long legs, can fly a long way, carry a lot of ordnance.
Okay, and is that the only thing about it that makes it suitable for that sort of?
It's also used in aggressor role, simulating certain MiG aircraft, although this particular aircraft isn't involved so much in that role. But matter of fact, this particular aircraft's going to retire in 2 months, so it's just kind of getting ready to go away, get replaced by the F-18.
This is the aircraft that they used to simulate the MiGs in Top Gun, wasn't it?
Exactly. Its flight characteristics are real similar to the MiG-21, so they like to use it.
Oh, super. And how long have you been doing it?
10 years.
Yeah. How did you get about getting into it?
Well, always wanted to fly. My dad's a pilot, and he'd done that for 30 years. And just kind of fell into it, always wanted to, was always interested, and finally got a chance and went at it. Been having fun ever since.
Same. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So we're talking to Mark Doan, who services these aircraft. What type of aircraft is this?
It's a CT-114 Tudor. Use it for training in CFB Moose Jaw.
Okay, and then once somebody's trained on one of these, what would they move on to?
They could move on to the F-18 or transport aircraft, helicopters, any aircraft that we own in the forces.
Okay, and what's involved in maintaining them? Is it a fairly lengthy process?
They go on a 400-hour periodic inspection, but they're a pretty reliable aircraft. So we've got problems with them, sure, on a daily basis, but it's not a big problems. It's just small, nothing to worry about.
Yeah. How does it compare with some of the other aircraft?
It's pretty old, but it's holding up. It's not fast like the F-5 or the F-18, but it's quick enough.
How about as far as maintenance is concerned? Were there some that you have to do a lot of maintenance on?
No more than you would in any other. Every aircraft has its own cycle of inspection, and this one happens to be 400 hours, that's all.
Thank you.
McKinney from VMAQ2 at Cherry Point, North Carolina, and this is our NFO ECMO electronic countermeasure officer, First Lieutenant Brady. He's also VMAQ2. We came up for the Airshow, primary to see Calgary, so and to show a little bit of the color in the aircraft for the community. VMAQ2, we fly the EA-6B ICAP-2. Primary mission is to provide electronic support to jam radar and missile sites. We do both through electronic jamming modulations, and also we have the capability of firing the HARM missile, which is a high anti-radiation missile that will seek out and destroy the radars from their emissions also. It has a crew of 4. We have a pilot and one of the ECMOs up front that does the piloting, navigation, communication. It has 2 that sit in the back and actually do the set up the jamming modulations and the surveillance that is required from the back seat. It's a non-afterburning aircraft, about 550 knots on the deck, one of the faster non-burning aircraft. Primary mission is to stand off, and as the strike group goes in, and we'll provide a masking deception for their early warning and the missile sites to provide protection for the strike group so that they don't get shot down. Do you have anything else to say on that?
It's ugly, but it works. Yeah. You had to put that into action?
No, I have not. We have all carrier qualled. This aircraft is used by both the Navy and the Marine Corps. It's one of their more expensive aircraft, and I have carrier qualled, and I believe this aircraft here has seen action.
Yeah, this is one. This was one of the aircraft was in the Libya strike.
So, but none of our crews. We have spent. I have done 4 Westpac cruises out of the Japan area, but haven't seen action on that. So, we primarily we do practice long-range strikes, and through the group with A6s and other aircraft, and we're all weather, and it's been a pretty interesting 2-year tour for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're talking to Joe Cunningham. Joe, what sort of aircraft is this and how are you associated with it?
This is a Navy TA-4. It's a training jet for the U.S. Navy. This is where we train students how to fly advanced tactical jets and eventually to go aboard aircraft carrier.
Okay, and how are you affiliated with it?
I'm a student right now. I'm on my last training mission, really, in the training command. I came up here across country for instruments, mainly to get last of my instrument training. So we heard about this air show, so we came up.
So are you? What are you moving on to now?
Well, hopefully I'll get to fly out into the Navy, fly A7s or A6s. I don't know yet. I'll probably know next week as soon as I finish up here.
How does the ejection system work?
Well, for the Navy, the ejection system, I don't know how to explain it. The seat, it's rocket fired, and we got two different type of handles, one lower handle, one upper handle. And what you do is you pull the handle, it initiates the sequence. It's an automatic sequence. They'll jettison the canopy, and then the rockets will fire the seat, and the seat will roll up some rails, and it'll get you away from the airplane, less than a second.
Okay, and what sort of altitude is it effective to?
Oh, it's all altitudes.
Oh, is it?
It's the seat for the Navy has to be 0-0 capable. What a 0-0 capable is, you have to be on the ground doing 0, just like sitting right here, and it'll eject us out if it's armed.
Okay, and what happens if you're inverted?
Well, it depends on how close you are to the ground.
I guess it does. Thank you.
If you're at 5,000 feet, you'll get out safely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So today we're talking to a T-38 pilot. Tell us a little bit about the T-38 and what are its uses.
The T-38 is the Air Force's advanced trainer. We send pilots through who want to become Air Force pilots. They fly the T-37, which is the other airplane just down the row here, and they spend about 85 hours in that airplane. Then they come to us and fly this one for about 108 hours. And after that, they're Air Force pilots and they go fly any other airplane in the Air Force inventory.
Okay, and I guess they just upgrade their training from there.
Sure do. It's just about a 6-month upgrade to any other airplane in the inventory.
And the T-38 is also the aircraft the shuttle pilots use to stay current.
That's correct. They fly this. I'm not sure how many hours a month they fly it, but they fly this to keep their hands-on proficiency going. And they also use this airplane to chase the shuttle on final approach.
And they also used it as the bad guy in Top Gun.
Yeah, they called it a MiG something or other, but they painted it black and it was a T-38 that Tom Cruise was trying to shoot down.
Thank you.
Sure. My pleasure.
We're talking to Major John Hammond. You're the pilot of this aircraft.
Well, I was one of the pilots that brought it in. I was actually giving another pilot a check ride, and I was in the jump seat.
What sort of aircraft is it, and tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, this is a Lockheed C-5B built by Lockheed down in Marietta, Georgia, and it weighs about 769,000 pounds at maximum gross weight, and built, as I said, down in Georgia.
Okay, and it's the second largest plane in the world?
Well, it's the largest airplane in the free world, we'll put it that way. The Russians have one that's a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And
what sort of carrying capacity are you looking at?
We can carry 200,000 pounds of cargo and 75 passengers at maximum gross weight.
Okay, what would that relate to in, say, in terms of Greyhound buses or something?
Well, you can put 6 Greyhound buses on it, and I've actually hauled 8 T-38 Talons in the cargo compartment. The largest Army tank, the M1 tank, is 100,000 pounds, and we can get that on here as well. We're built for outsized cargo, big cranes and heavy equipment.
Okay, what sort of cruising speed are you looking at fully loaded?
We cruise just like the airliners do, at 0.77 Mach, 75% of the speed of sound, and about 500 miles per hour.
How long have you been doing this?
20 years. Yeah, I've been in MAC, our parent command, military airlift command, for 20 years now, flying 141s and C-5s.
This was the same type of aircraft they used to get the Canadian peacekeeping force over in the Iran and Iraq.
That's right, down in the Middle East, exactly right. Last year, I believe they had 2 missions out of Calgary.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
talking to Paul Dobson, who's the captain of this aircraft. What sort of aircraft is this?
This is a Victor K Mark II air-to-air refueling aircraft.
So it refuels aircraft while they're in the air?
That's correct, yeah. Fighters, basically.
Fighters? How many aircraft can it handle at once?
We've got 3 hoses. We have 2 wing hoses and a center hose, but we do 2 aircraft at once on the wing hoses, or a single large aircraft on the center hose.
Okay, and what sort of fuel transfer can you do? How long does it take?
Center hose is about 4,000 pounds a minute. We took on 30,000 pounds on the way here, so we were in for about 10 minutes. It's the sort of time.
So what does that mean for cruising speed if you're carrying that much weight?
Cruising about 0.88 Mach, which is about 500, 600 miles an hour.
And that's full?
Yep.
How about empty?
It doesn't really make that much difference. It's about the same.
Super. And you're a captain with the Royal Air Force?
That's correct. The Royal Air Force from England.
Thank you.
Okay.
That what they call the old terminal building on the southwest corner is still standing. Do you have any plans, future plans for that, or is it going to continue?
Well, there is a requirement for just one terminal building at an airport, and there really is a disadvantage to a community to have more than one, because you are faced with the difficult job of moving passengers from one building to the other. So we're going to stick with one terminal building. We have analyzed the potential uses of that building, and we've concluded that the site would be just so valuable for general aviation purposes, for corporate aviation, that the site is going to be redeveloped for that purpose. Calgary continues to be the center for corporate aviation in Canada. It's a very important part of our past, and we expect it to be a very important part of our future also. The general aviation, and I guess that term general aviation encompasses so much. The corporate aviation, some private aviation, helicopters, Stars, that's a group operating off the south side of the airport that has a helicopter ambulance service. There are just so many aspects to aviation that most people don't have an opportunity to see. And that was one of the things that we tried to do with Airport Day and our 50th anniversary celebrations. What we did is we opened the airport for a day and invited the community out to see their airport, to get to know it a little better, and to get to I guess to appreciate some of the impacts which it has in this community.
Mm-hmm. Richard, what are some of the impacts on the community that you were mentioning?
Yes, we had a consultant that is expert on these sort of things do an economic impact study for us recently, and for the year 1988 he came up with some very, very impressive results. What we have at Calgary International Airport is 5,000 jobs directly related to this airport. And when you consider the spin-off which these jobs have in other parts of the community, and you consider the jobs that in the community that are directly related to air travel. For example, a passenger arrives visiting the community, he travels by taxi downtown, and he goes to restaurants and stays at a hotel. When you sum all these jobs up, it's 16,700 jobs is the total impact in Calgary, and that's pretty substantial. Money-wise, it's even more substantial. The estimation was $930 million worth of income is generated into this community as a result of Calgary International Airport. That includes the direct impact goods, services that are purchased by firms operating at the airport, and some of the spin-off and other impacts that occur as that money spends and moves through the economy. And certainly the business of maintaining aircraft is great business for the community. Canadian Airlines, for example, has a major base here in Calgary, maintains their own aircraft, and from time to time does contract work for others. Very recently, they had a contract to completely refit the 707s that are operated by the Department of National Defense for the federal government. And this is big dollars for the community. It's good business, good, clean industry for Calgary. Of course, in addition to that is all the other general aviation businesses on the south side of the airport that specialize in maintaining and servicing smaller aircraft.
The present airport that we're on now, could you give us the statistics of some of the landings, takeoffs, and breakdown of it, more or less?
Yes, last year, 1988, is the year that we have the most recent figures for. A total of 206,000 movements in Calgary International for that particular year. That made us number 3 in Canada, just behind Pearson and Vancouver. In terms of passengers, our passengers grew substantially during that year. We're up to just over 4.6 billion passengers. Those are the unofficial numbers. That ranks us number 4 in Canada, behind Pearson, Vancouver, and Dorval.
Per year?
That's correct. That's for 1988.
How many airlines are scheduled into Calgary?
We have a total of 11 airlines currently. There's airlines that serve just international destinations such as KLM. We've got the major Canadian carriers, Air Canada, Canadian Airlines. We've got Ward Air. And many American carriers. There's America West, Continental, Delta, United, serving Calgary. It really came of age in 1988 with the Olympics.
Tell me a little bit about the airport configuration itself. The runways and length, I understand they're fairly long.
Yes, we have 3 runways here in Calgary. The main one is a north-south runway, and it's 12,675 feet. That makes it the very longest runway of any commercial airport in Canada. We also have another runway that intersects that one, and it's 8,000 feet in length. So we've got 2 principal runways for airline use, and that should serve our needs well into the next century. We're also very fortunate to have land in reserve so that a new north-south runway parallel to the 1634 can be constructed when the need requires that be done. So I guess we can look into the future knowing that we have the capacity right now, and knowing we have the facilities to build, the land available to build into the future to meet the future needs of aviation when that arises.
Mm-hmm. Calgary does have the latest in technology for landing systems and so on for air navigation, I assume.
Yes, we have the most modern instrument landing systems currently in use. Of course, in the future, we're looking towards a microwave landing system when that becomes the standard for use for the aviation industry in the future.
I noticed, which a lot of passengers probably do when they come to the terminal building, there's a radar antenna. It looks like a golf ball out there. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's our new radar for the Calgary area. It's replacing the radar that's right beside it. It's state-of-the-art. It's tied into a national radar upgrading system, and it's of course to be linked to the new tower, which is recently completed. It is, I guess, the standard for towers throughout Canada and maybe throughout the world, and it's going to include all the most modern electronic and radar facilities as soon as that equipment is completed and available.
Well, thank you, Richard. I appreciate the interview very much, and let's hope for the best for the Calgary International Airport.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard.
My pleasure.
Airport 50 has been brought to you by Time Air, Canada's largest regional airline. We're a partner in the Canadian Airlines International Network with services across Canada and around the world. Time Air has been providing top flight service for almost 25 years, and it shows. Time Air, the heart of the western skies, providing complete passenger, cargo, and charter flight services.